You're listening to Mixing Mindsets. I'm Andrew Blank.
And I'm Eric Navrosky, and we hope you find some value out of these conversations about lifestyle, music, and more. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Mixing Mindsets. And today we've got Bret Alexander.
Happy to be here.
The Bret Alexander.
The Bret Alexander from the Badlees, and so many other stories that we're totally going to get into because we started and we were like, hey, we should probably shut up because we just kept talking and talking and talking. So anyways, let's begin. Bret, what is your backstory?
My backstory. We started at the beginning.
Let's take it from the top.
All right. Well, as far as music goes, I mean, I started playing in high school, playing in bands, doing that kind of thing. As I was getting out of high school, I wanted to go to Berkeley or something like that. I wanted to do
As
that.
most did.
As most did. I got accepted to go, but I was also, as it worked out, and in my case, I was actually good at sports. I was a football player, so I ended up getting a bunch of, and my academics were pretty good, so I ended up getting a bunch of like offers to play college ball and a bunch of, Ivy League schools, and because my academics were okay, and I ended up staying fairly close to home. I went to Bucknell University.
Okay,
and from there, but from the beginning, from 14 was I wanted to be in the music business. I wanted to be a musician. From high school. So as it worked out, there was a thing called, they had like sort of like an intercession between semesters where you could take like a course and at Bucknell, like in January. And the place you were at down at Paul's.
Yes.
Was
8 days a week.
8 days a week.
Yeah.
Paul, yeah. It used to be called Susquehanna Sound. And they had one of those little intercession, go in, take a class, learn about recording.
Right.
So I went into there and took their class, and then somehow finagled through the university to convince them that they should give me 12 credits to do an internship there. I had all my senior year.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my intro into actually getting into the real music business. And I'll start off with the story of how it actually happened, because there was like, with you guys, I'm sure as long as you've been doing it, and, me much longer, but there's at some point, there's definitely an element of luck.
Yes.
Yeah.
That gets you in there. And I went home after college and played in a band with my high school friends. And I got towards the end of the summer, I'm like, well, okay, I got to figure something out. I got to go get a job.
Yeah.
Some sort of.
What was the name of the band? Oh, I always like that.
The high school band?
Yeah.
Well,
I need to know the names.
No, it wasn't cool. I mean, it was called Mask, like MASQUE.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
So, but we're still pals to this day. Like, I never had more fun probably than playing with them. I mean, it was a blast. It was just pure fun.
Yeah.
And anyway, went home, played with the band for a while. Those guys moved to Harrisburg. The other guys in my band with their jobs, and I thought, well, maybe I'll move down there.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I said, I got an interview down in Harrisburg, and where I was from, I'm from North Central PA. It's kind of hard to, in the woods.
Yep.
In the woods.
So I decided, well, okay, it was kind of like, I'm going to drive down to Harrisburg to do this interview. And on the way is the studio, which was 8 days a week now. But I just got done interning.
Right.
So I went in there just to stop by and say hello on my way down to my sales job or whatever it was. And I walked in there, and the guys at that studio also did some designing of studios. Like, they built other places.
Right.
Those guys, they had that studio, but they also were studio designers, which ties into the Hendrix thing that you were asking about before.
Okay.
So anyway, they did some of that kind of work, smaller scale, regional, local. But what happened is one of the people that I had taken, who was also one of the kids that was also an intern, and had taken that same course with me, was his uncle.
Okay.
His uncle was Whitney Houston's accountant.
Oh, okay.
So this is all coming around. So what happened was, the kid, Steve, is sitting at dinner with his uncle. His uncle said, Whitney really wants to put a studio in her house.
Yeah.
And Steve's like, well, I know some guys that can do that. Right.
Right.
And they called while I was standing in that studio, visiting on my way to my first and only job interview.
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So basically, the thing that happened was, these guys said, well, oh my gosh, we got this amazing gig. We're going to go do this amazing gig.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, we need somebody to run this place.
Right.
You know,
You're in.
and that was how I was in. That's how I got in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
indirectly, Whitney Houston started my music career.
I love that.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious because Toothless and Sleep Sculptor are two bands that I'm heavily associated with, one being mine. Put like in the background of our recent LPs,
Mhm.
Whitney Houston's music.
Really?
Ah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
And then
Whitney's like,
you also have ties.
I know Whitney is like a big like talking point in my bands.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason I have no idea why. I think it started like we were going ice skating and our one guitar player can't really ice skate well, so he's like falling over and he's like I have a video of it. He's falling over, he's like shaking his arms. And the lady who was working the place, she's like, "What music do you want to hear?" And he just goes, "Put Whitney on, put Whitney on," and he's like falling over. So it's just like so weird that
Bodyguard
It's like a running joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, go
I love
ahead.
that.
I know.
But just to finish up what you were saying
Yes.
about the Hendrix thing, what it was is the room down there, the guy Bob that we all worked, I interned with and worked for.
He was okay.
He designed studios, but the company that he collaborated with, he didn't work for them, was John Storick,
Okay.
who is, probably of the last 75 years, certainly one of the most famous studio designers in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
And John Storick designed Electric Ladyland.
Okay.
So that the same guy that designed Electric Ladyland designed 8 Days a Week.
That's wild.
That is
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
So that's
All ties together.
that's the Hendrix connection, sort of.
Wow.
And he and it's funny because Paul's place is in Northumberland, and it wasn't in use as a recording studio for quite a while.
Okay.
And it's amazing that it survived to me.
Right.
It's like that somebody didn't turn it into.
Well, it has that feel the moment you walk in.
But
Oh my gosh.
but I mean, there's like however many, whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars in design
Exactly.
that is worthless to probably everybody within 100 miles.
Yeah, right.
Fair. Yeah.
Right.
Other
You're
than
not wrong.
Paul
Yeah.
Yeah.
or somebody like Paul or me.
Huh.
That's so sick. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love going to Paul's. Every time we
Yeah.
go to Paul's,
That's great.
I feel so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a blast.
me
I'm having so
too.
much fun.
So that's the beginning of music for you. We spoke, but just before we began this about how like this is the first time I'm meeting you in person, but I've seen your name plastered everywhere for probably the last decade of my life because you play everywhere.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
play a
you're a
lot.
working musician, but also I'm like having met Paul. Over the last, let's say, 3 years or so, I was able to connect with him and kind of get my introduction to the Badlees. And Paul gave a little bit of that story, but I want to hear that from your perspective. Like, so that's you just told the beginnings of your musicianship.
Yeah.
What?
The Badley side?
Yeah. What's the Badley side of that?
Well, I was working at that studio as an engineer, and all those guys came in with their college bands or beginning bands
Yeah.
and started doing demos. So I did a lot of those early demos. Sometimes, if the guitar player wasn't cutting it, I would, play a few things. I know you do that. There were some of those kind of things that went on, and eventually a lot of those, other people that were in their bands either quit or lost interest, and
Right.
we all ended up together.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. And you were talking about longevity, and it was kind of like, that whole thing of, I think in our case, there was a sort of, the Cortez, kind of lands and burns all the boats so they can't go back. You know what I mean?
Right.
That story of burning the boats, you wipe out your options.
Okay.
Like, okay, we're going.
Yeah.
We're going to go do this. And there was a moment when that happened.
Yeah.
In our case, it was kind of like, okay, because we had one guy that was living in New York City. There was a couple of us that were, spread out, and we were playing on weekends, but we were all just kind of coming together.
Right. Yeah.
And then it was kind of like, okay, we're gonna do this.
That was home base.
We got a little rehearsal room in the basement of a storage facility,
Mm-hmm.
and started rehearsing every day, writing songs, and putting together on a schedule,
Yeah.
record every 18 months, EPs every 3 to 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Playing out, okay, we're going to make this circle. We're going to go out and we're going to play. Okay, we're going to play, Philadelphia. We're going to play New York City. We're going to play Penn State. We're going to play Harrisburg. We're going to play Allentown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pick a mid-Atlantic area, into New York State, New Jersey, the Jersey Shore.
Everything was well thought out.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and just kind of just keep going
Mhm.
around, and we just kept doing that for a long time. And there was that was really kind of how it happened.
Right.
Just a little, some of it was good at the beginning. Some of the things we did, some of it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it went forward.
I can't help but feel like that speaks to that like philosophy of like if you're in something long enough, everything will just connect and work itself out. Almost like you said, like the fact that you were in college, you did the internship, and then you just so happened to be at the studio, right place, right time. I can't help but feel like that also connects to that mindset of like, well, if we have this regimen of this is what we're going to do and we're here for the long term, eventually the stars are just going to align. And that's exactly what it sounds like happened in your case.
Yeah. I think, people, it's got you're coming around to is the concept of luck.
Yeah.
And like, I believe luck plays a big part, obviously, in anyone's success.
Right.
Right.
Where you're born. There's
There's many different
where you're born, what family you're born into. There's the Andy Warhol quote of, being born's like being kidnapped and sold into slavery.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
right, yeah.
if you look at it from that
So
side,
much.
it's like, like in the biggest predictor of somebody's success is their zip code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
there's a lot of that, and that's luck. That person didn't have really anything to do
Yeah.
with, you didn't get to choose a lot of those things.
Right.
But as far as like a career is concerned, I think there's a level. I read a thing recently that said it really well for me.
Mm.
Like you can say like, oh well, the harder I work, the luckier I got. That's a
Yeah,
cliche.
Yeah, I
Yes.
hear that all the time.
Don't totally believe that.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe it. You have to work hard. Certainly,
Right.
you have to work hard.
Yeah.
But you can work very hard. You could come in here and whip out 5 songs a week and put them on SoundCloud
Yeah.
for 20 years and nothing will happen.
Right.
Yes, that's
You know what
true.
I mean? And the way I look at it is like I look at luck as luck's a collision. Luck is putting yourself in the way of things.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So that's exactly what you just said. It's like,
Yeah.
if you set yourself up for the maximum amount of collisions, things you can run into,
That could potentially
personally
happen.
run
Yes.
into you guys. People come in here, then you network and then you
Yeah.
and then you collaborate and you do those kind of things. You got to set yourself up for the maximum amount of things to run into, and eventually,
Right.
you'll
Eventually, you're just
You're
going to run
upping
into the
your
right thing.
percentage of
succeed. You're
of
up in your
potential.
you
potential.
have to, and you just have to like raise your rate of failure.
Yeah.
That makes that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I like from my perspective, I feel like obviously we're still early in our careers,
Yeah.
but I can't help but we've ran into people who are even earlier in their careers who already like hit this road. But I feel like unfortunately this statistically happens a pretty heavy percent where like people hit their first road bump and just kind of stop
Sure.
altogether.
Yeah, and I think
like,
that kind of weeds out the people who maybe didn't
And then-
totally want it.
I think I look at someone like Bret as like a prime example of like, hey, don't stop.
Yeah.
You're actually just making
Yeah.
the
You got
right
power
failures.
through the roadblock.
Yeah.
And there's, and you kind of have to look at the whole picture. Like what do you want? Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you want to? Whatever. You want to be a rock star, or do you
Yeah.
want to do this and still have a family?
Right.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you kind of got to make your own little
Your own
your own
bubble.
little stew
Yeah.
Yeah.
of what you want your life to look like.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this not too long ago, but it was you find putting out the music is the goal
Yes.
rather than being like, I need to put out this song
Mhm.
and it needs to blow up and it needs to do super well. If you kind
Yeah.
of change your expectations to say the goal is just putting it out. We
Mhm.
did it. We put it out. Well, now you're content. Now you move on to the next thing.
I think
And then
that
you do that again. And it
yeah.
really helps you mentally get through the grind of putting out tons and tons and tons of music where hopefully something can stick. Because eventually, if you keep thinking,
Mhm.
well, the
This
goal
didn't-
is to make something blow up,
Mhm.
you're going to put out 10 songs, nothing's going to happen. You're going to get super discouraged.
Yeah.
But if you say the goal is to put out, just put out music Well, then 10 songs into it, you've already had basically 10 successes, I guess. And you're like, all right, I can keep going. It's like kind of just a perspective shift. Like
That really
mentality.
speaks to that philosophy of like loving the journey and not the destination.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very hard
To me, that's kind of how you keep up longevity.
philosophical concept to like embed within yourself.
I like to make it measurable on some level too.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't get me wrong.
You know, like some sort. I mean, you know, you can look at it financially, or you can look at it, you know, a goal or whatever. Okay, well, I want to start a podcast. Okay, well, we're gonna do this many times. Okay, then we're gonna try to get to this many viewers.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, okay, I noticed that, you know,
amount of,
I noticed on Spotify that, you know, that seems to be getting us a little bit more action than over, or whatever you do, or however. I don't have a podcast, you know more than me. You know,
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but if you can make it measurable and somehow measure your progress, that feels like progress too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, rather than if your goal is like, oh, I want to be, you know, I didn't grow up with the, you know, The Voice and American Idol and
Yeah, exactly.
things like
Yeah.
that, you know, where they just,
Like
they give you these little narratives of these individuals.
That thought of like instant success was like
and
very strange.
Like I want the guy to go on there and say, you know, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do this. I hope I win. If I lose, I'm going to go back and start playing kegs again. You know,
Yeah.
that's the guy I wanted to.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's the guy you're rooting for at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because then, you know, but they like that, you know, oh, this is my last shot, and you know,
Yeah.
and really it's not.
Well, that that mentality is the working musician. Like,
Sure,
do you want to be a working musician, or are you just kind of interested in like this?
Yeah.
I don't know, this rose-colored glasses like dream of like, oh, I'm gonna be super famous, or you, like you said, like you kind of create your bubble and you say, or your whatever you want to call it, you say, this is the way that I want my life to look. And I think that was me for sure. You know, so just had a baby, I've got a family, I've got things going, but still, like my life I wanted as, I guess you could say I'm a working musician. I'm technically not earning money playing, but it's in the music world. So like, I guess I'm
totally music.
yeah. So I guess I'm a working.
I do both.
Yeah. I guess I'm a working musician.
Sure.
Yeah. And you just like keep that going. You know, you set that goal. I mean, Sarah and I talk about like goal settings and how to achieve X, Y, and Z all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
And most of it comes down to perseverance, honestly.
You know, a big question that I just thought of right now for you, Bret, is if you were to take where you are right now and just kind of speak to the younger version of yourself, maybe like our age, what differences would you see between the Bret of now and the Bret of back then?
What you know, not really regrets, just kind of what I do differently, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
A lot of it, I don't.
I guess from the working musician point of view. Yeah.
I don't really look at things like as if I did something that was stupid.
Which they tend to happen at young
Which I've
age.
done a lot of dumb things. You know, if I do something that's stupid, I don't really regret it if it was an honest mistake.
For sure.
Right.
You know, if it was an honest mistake and I didn't know any better, I don't regret it.
Because you learn.
If I did know better and I did it, I regret that.
Right.
Some. But still, the thing that I would really change is, like, first of all, you got to be all in on yourself.
Yeah.
You got to be all in on yourself.
100%.
Yeah. And you know, I said within the confines of, like I said, that bubble of what you want it to look like.
Right.
And then the second thing is like the real currency of everything. The only real currency that matters is time.
Yeah.
You know, and if you have like a family, like the thing there's been a lot of things I've done over time that I thought, oh, well, this is going to be an opportunity for me.
Yes.
You know, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, and if I'd have thought about it for 20 minutes instead of just like, okay, we're going to make this work. And then I spent all sorts of time that I could have spent over here, you know, on myself or on my kids or, you know, not that as a musician goes, I spend a lot of time, you know, with my kids and family, you know, comparatively speaking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But there've been a lot of things that I wish I would have taken a little more time to analyze whether it was worth my time, just because,
Right.
like the ambition of it all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
You're not getting time back.
It's funny because like
So-
I feel grateful. I'm 28, so
Yeah.
I feel grateful for some of the experiences I've already had and some of the people I've come across and had these types of conversations with because they tell me similar things. So thank you for that reassurance.
No,
and that.
that's definitely.
I just I remember two things that kind of really stuck with me. One was I completely forget the guy's name, but he was a tech up at like the Guitar Center or something like that.
Okay.
Like in the earlier days. I've been with my wife for 14 years.
Okay.
So we walked into the Guitar Center together, and I just remember this guy looked at me, and I was talking with guitars a little bit, and he looks at me and just goes, "No matter what, you keep her above everything else." And I was like, that's been in my brain for like the last decade.
How old are you?
Early 20s.
okay, yeah.
So nothing too bad.
Yeah, not crazy long ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, you got to keep your family first and
Yeah.
Yeah.
your friends.
Right.
I mean, so many.
And then
You hear, I guess, horror stories all the time of people who basically neglected their family for
yeah.
other things, and then
then,
that's a huge
know-
regret. A good friend of mine, his name is Dante. He's in a band called Flying Formation. He just sent us a text where he was talking to his dad, who is a little bit older,
Yeah.
and he was like, "What, you're a little bit older now. You went through so much life. What is something that has been the best part of life?"
Yeah.
And he said, essentially, long story short, the relationships.
Yeah.
Like relationships that he built with people, the relationships that he built with friends, that community. And, he didn't say, "Oh, I made so much money," or I, whatever.
The accolades or-
yeah. It was literally like
People.
family and people. Like
connectivity.
that's kind of the thing that brings so much people so much joy
Mhm.
is really those relationships. And a lot of people kind of they chase other things and they'll chase
Sure.
money and and whatnot and find unfulfillment
Mhm.
out of it. And I feel like it's an easier goal to chase. Like it's easy to look at money and go, okay, well we're gonna go for that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
really being mindful to say like, okay, yeah, like this is, it's cool to earn money, cool to do that thing, but there are really important things in life,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like my family,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And you and I have been really in that recently, just
Mhm.
because of the babies. Like,
Yes,
this
100%.
brand new
You've been-
life is such a perspective shift
Huge.
of being like, oh my gosh, there's so much more than just me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Astronomical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much more.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to make, I mean, you have to, like I said, you have to make.
Build your.
It has to
build
be
your
sustainable.
bubble.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
Exactly.
I mean, dreams have to be sustainable.
Yes.
For
Yes,
you and your family.
100%.
So
Yeah.
you can't say, "Oh, it doesn't matter."
I think that's.
Fly, be free. But
Yeah, I think it's such a
it's
crucial
balance.
part of the message that we're trying to get across. I don't know.
Yeah, no, honestly,
Like,
yeah.
truthfully, sustainability, and especially to a younger audience who's like figuring things out. And I'm speaking from like like I said, we're 28. Just I feel like occasionally we'll talk to like the 18-year-old who wants the whole world all at once. And I feel like this message is really trying to appeal to them. Slow down a little bit. It's gonna be fine.
It's definitely finding that balance point. You can't swing the pendulum.
Yeah.
You can't only be like basically neglecting finances and whatnot, but you can't only be focused on that. Like
Yes.
there is this healthy balance, and finding that healthy balance is difficult.
Yeah.
I think difficult, at least.
Yes,
well,
sir.
when you're younger, I mean, this sounds a little harsh, but I remember getting in an argument with this was many years ago
Mm.
with a younger guy, and he was, he was saying more or less, like, well, we have our youth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This wasn't, I mean, I've been old for a while now. So it was, he was saying we have our youth, you know what I mean? So we have time and, and more or less, well, I don't know, what he was trying to get across to
Right.
me more or less, like I should be farther along. I should be somewhere else. And what do I know of what, if
Yeah.
I'm playing here, what do you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of conversation.
Like, oh, okay. Like success is measured by like age almost. Like this weird,
or like, if like, like I'm sure Paul told you, and like we've done, one time we were doing arena shows with this particular little run, we were doing a run with Bob Seger.
Yeah.
And it was like
awesome.
we're playing, 17,000 seat arena on a Tuesday. The next night I played a hibachi restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
That's
completely
just the
natural to me.
Yeah.
You're just a musician.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's not reality. So I guess my point is like where you are at any given day, some of it's amazing, some of it's unbelievable. I'm happy to be able to stand up in front of a crowd. I mean, I'm 57, and I can stand up in front of a crowd of 1,000 people, having everybody sing the words to tunes I wrote in my bedroom.
Yeah,
that means so much more.
That's cool.
Exactly.
I'm happy to be able to do that. But anyway, I was talking to this kid, and he was just more or less saying, whatever he was saying. Right. And I remember saying to him, I said, I can see it in you. I said, dude, I said, you're going nowhere. You just haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
And it's because like with your attitude,
sometimes
it's not happening.
Sometimes they need to hear that.
Yeah, well, some of them take heat. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm, a wisdom tooth or my man on the mountain. It was just, it's like these little tiny, get yourself, figure out what your parameters are, figure out what you want it to look like, make your little steps measurable. It's like, it's like saving money. It's the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes to grow, you need to just be chopped down a couple blocks.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're gonna get beaten down.
Oh yeah.
Pruned is a nice way. You get it beaten out of you.
Yeah,
exactly.
Honestly, yeah.
That's good. That's good stuff.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I'm sure we've all, probably Bret more than us, but I'm sure like we've all had our pruning, quote unquote.
Oh yeah.
Of just like moments where you're like, oh, that hurts. That hurts a lot.
You need that to become the better version of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because
humility,
yes.
I feel like in my own personal life, I try to move forward in thinking like, okay, how do I achieve the things I want to achieve? How do I treat the people the way that I want to treat people without having to go through more pain again? Because like, I mean, there are lessons to be learned and painful lessons to be learned. But then I try to look at that and say, how can I learn that lesson without going through that kind of pain? And it really shapes the way that you look towards the future and the way you act towards somebody and the way, because you got people like whoever that kid was who kind of acts like a jerk.
Yeah.
And then looks poor for it and whatnot. So I try to look at that and say, well, that was a painful lesson he had to learn. How can I learn that lesson from his pain, essentially? And I try to lock at that going forward because I mean, I'm only 29 and I feel like there are probably many more painful lessons that I have to learn that I'm trying to learn the lesson, but also avoid
sometimes the only way out is through.
Obviously there's so many opportunities now for education. I mean, I've said to other people, if they with the Badlees thing, like I said, I kind of described it, how it started to move and how it started and how it moved. Yeah. Then once we got a record deal, I said, my one regret is like, it was just us. Like there wasn't anybody that had been there before, which is saying it was all of us. It was our first deal.
Yeah.
It was, you know what I mean? And there wasn't any sort of, and it's exactly what you just said, Eric.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I wanted somebody that had been there 10 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I trusted.
Right.
And those are the people to meet now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big part of this podcast too. Just keep 100%. Making connections and keep seeking wise counsel. I always call it. Like always seeking someone who has been there, who knows more than you and who could teach you a lesson.
I'm still looking for them. It's lifelong. It never ends.
I always look towards my dad.
Yeah.
I was like, he learned a lot of painful lessons. Let's learn from him. But unfortunately we're hitting that mark. Honestly, we could talk for days.
Yes, we could.
We probably lost video, so sorry, YouTube. But we'll probably wrap it up here.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll definitely continue talking after this.
100%.
So, sorry, guys.
But let's take a minute here.
Yeah, please.
Bret, let's push your stuff. So I know you're a man who with many talents who does a lot of things. If you want to just list them off here so everyone can check everything out.
I just have a website. You can kind of Bret Alexander online, and I play, I produce. Sometimes I do little live streams, and that's my main. Yeah.
If not, I'm sure they'll come across you at a gig or something.
Yeah, or gigs. Yeah. I play a couple hundred gigs a year.
Oh wow!
Some of them are bigger than others. Yeah. Just what I just said. Some of them are
exactly.
No
some of them are hibachi restaurants.
There's no hibachi in my life now, but comparable.
So any
some of
hibachi
it-
restaurant owners listening,
Yeah.
let's book this man.
Let's book this man.
I had a picture.
Throwback.
Like at one time, I was like taking a picture from my microphone each day.
Yeah.
And then the one was like, the picture from the sound check at the
I love that.
empty
Yeah.
arena. And the next day was the guy with the flame.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I had that one on my phone for a while.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
BretAlexander.com.
Yep. Look
Check
it up.
it out.
Look it up. Go see him play.
Bret Alexander online.
Brett Alexander online.
Just look me up. Just
Yeah,
Google
Brett
me.
Alexander. You'll find him.
Google me, you'll find me.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Peace.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Awesome.